So the recording have now started, and welcome everyone to a new session of Global Energy Community World Youth World Energy Cafe. Today we have unique guest expert Rachel Gavey from UK, and me myself, I am Gavey, the host of the session, and we have the Rob, our supporter advisor from Netherlands. So the topic, as everyone knows, is about women in energy. What are the challenges, the journey, and for this we have the best example is Rachel. So I will not be able to introduce you probably Rachel, so we can start the session by sharing your inspiring story, and after it we will take Q&A from everyone so that they can get inspired more. The floor is yours.
Great. Yeah, thank you. It's lovely to meet everybody, and thank you for joining the call. I was really honoured to be invited to speak. I thought about what we could talk about in the session, and I purposely haven't produced a whole load of slides because I thought that would be dull. So I just thought I'd give you a brief overview of my journey and maybe some of the challenges that I feel are maybe more specific to the theme of this, which is, as a woman in the industry. But equally, it would be great to really have it as a cafe session, and I'm happy to take any questions because, I appreciate that my story is unique to me. The countries I've lived in and the challenges that I've faced as a woman and as a mother, and within the countries that I've been fortunate to live in, but those challenges may not be relevant to other people who live in different places and have different life journeys. So if I can provide you with some of my examples and some of the things that I found difficult and how I overcame them, but please do tell me, why this topic, when it came up in your last cafe, what were the challenges? What was found to be challenging, and why you brought this conversation together for today, and if I can help or advise in any way, that would be great. But I'm just one person in one set of circumstances, so I think it's really important to say that up front. Okay, so my journey through my career, I wanted to study the natural earth and the oceans in particular. I love the beaches, the oceans. I was fortunate to be brought up between two places, so southeast of England near London, which is very inland focused, very exciting area of the UK to live in. But half of my time I spent growing up in South Wales, and right on the beach, and my parents enjoy boats and my father likes fishing and things like that, so I had that strong attachment to the oceans, and that's really what I wanted to study. So I studied that at various different universities and ended up with a PhD in marine geology, ocean science, and I loved that whole experience was fantastic. I think reflecting on this topic, very early on in my career, knowing that that's the area I wanted to be in, I got used to being in the minority within a room. So it was a very male-dominated course at the university, especially for the more engineering side of the course. So from very early on, you start to notice that maybe you're in the minority of the group, which presents its own challenges and ways of accepting that. I worked in a variety of different roles following that, consultancy, technology development, as a geologist, as an engineering geologist, and eventually found my way into the oil and gas industry, and had a fantastic role with the Austrian oil and gas operator OMV. I was based in New Zealand, which is a beautiful part of the world, and lived there for 10 years. And that whole experience of working for a large company on some really exciting technology-based projects. We were handling data that had been acquired offshore from offshore seismic, drilling wells, utilizing the data from wells. Super privileged to have access to that experience. Lots of travel, lots of training. I think, again, got used to being one of the only women in the room, because the oil and gas industry is very male dominated, which, after a while you just stop noticing, because people are people, and you're there based on to do a job. And so for me, it was just sort of, it stopped becoming an issue for me. One of the significant things that happened for me during that time in my career was that I was fortunate enough to become a mother, which is a really significant part of my story. So, for me, that was a really big shift, that you go from being, for me anyway, speaking personally, I was very focused on my career. I was very ambitious. My job was incredibly important to me. And suddenly I had a small baby and my world changed, literally overnight. Yes, Rob, you're on mute, Rob.
Of course. Can I ask you a question, Rachel? Or maybe you can tell a little bit more about the time you were. So what the women were addressing, for instance, our cafe last week was feeling alone as a woman in an engineering environment in oil and gas, and that's something you just mentioned.
Yes,
you mentioned it. You're the only one. How did it feel? How are you reacting to it? What was your coping mechanism? Because, of course, you can become a mom. That's kind of a coping mechanism as well, but that's not the case. It's more like nobody's expecting that a female engineer or a woman alone between a lot of male in this industry. So the question is, how did you cope with it? How did you feel it? What did you do? What went through your mind? That type of stuff.
Could
you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. I think to be honest, for me, it wasn't as big a problem as I know maybe other people find it. I think, I mentioned that on my degree course, I was in the minority in terms of the fact there were lots of boys studying. I think I just got used to it quite early on. And the thing that I come back to is, it's about the people that you're with. And if the people that are on your team and that you're working with are good people, for me, it doesn't matter what their gender, race, background, education, where they're from. For me, that's not something that's a problem. What I would say, though, is that sometimes if you're in those situations, it can feel lonely when it comes to maybe the non-technical work aspect. So maybe the sort of general socializing outside of work, if there's things happening, maybe as a female, you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable going on your own. Or maybe it's, I don't know, different. There was a group of guys that used to go rock climbing, for example, in one of the companies I worked in. And I know that during those sessions of rock climbing, there was a lot of discussion that happened that was quite beneficial from a networking point of view. I could have taken up rock climbing. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I couldn't go, but it wasn't an area that I was interested in. And it was also partly as well that as the only female, that I didn't feel completely comfortable going along to those sorts of things when it was a big group of men. And not every woman would feel like that. Some women would just jump in and get involved, but for me, I didn't feel comfortable. So I think with those sorts of things, you do feel a little bit like you're missing out if you choose not to be part of those groups, or you feel uncomfortable being part of those groups. In terms of how I cope with that, or did cope with that, I don't know. I think you work on the relationships in the workplace, and you try to sort of fill in that gap by, building those relationships at work, get to know people, an environment that you feel safe in and you feel comfortable in. So for me, in that example, I didn't feel comfortable going along and going climbing and drinking beers afterwards. That was something that I wasn't comfortable doing. So I made sure that I got to know those people as well as I could on a personal level in the office, in an environment that I did feel comfortable in. So I guess it's sort of trying to make up for different things. But yeah, coming down to the fact that if the people that you're working with are good people and open, and you get on with them, and you respect them professionally, that for me, that's a bigger driving force than just being the only woman.
And in your social environment, so what was addressed last week as also in the cafe by Ned Sennett, is saying this: the social environment is also reacting to the fact that you are an engineer in a certain environment. So it's not only about your co-workers, but it's also about other people. They would say, oh, I'm not girls, can they be engineers? Is it possible? And by the way, shouldn't you not be more careful? You could not do it because, physically or whatever. Is that ever happened to you, or is the situation from your study time in Britain up to all these assignments, was it always accepted to be a female engineer?
Well, female, geologist.
Apologies, a geologist.
That's fine. I just don't want to insult any engineers who go.
Geologist.
I did work as a geology and engineering team within the engineering team, but yeah, I just don't want to upset any engineers who sort of go, she's a geologist. That's a really interesting question. I think on the whole, I've been quite fortunate in that. One of the comments I used to get, which I never quite fully understood, and I probably don't really understand to this day, when I used to tell people I was a geologist, especially an oil and gas geologist, I would quite often get the comment, "Oh, you don't look like a geologist." And I would go, okay, I don't really know what that means. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or it's, a negative comment. And what does a geologist in oil and gas look like? And I almost wonder if it's that kind of, maybe they expected like, I don't know, like a bearded man with like, I don't know, like a rucksack and walking boots. And then I walked in and they're like, maybe I'm in like a dress and heels and I've got blonde hair and they're like, "Ooh, that doesn't match with what I think a geologist looks like." But I always sort of give people the benefit of the doubt that it's a reflection of them, not a reflection of me.
Well, that's actually funny what you're saying. So I know a couple of geologists, and what I really, that's not about you, but it's just my image of geologists is that fascination for stones. Did you see this stone rock? Look at this stone.
Yeah.
And this one is even more. And in Oman, did you notice the geologic structure over there? No, it's like, stones for me, stones are stones, but for geologists, hey.
Yeah, it's like reading a book.
Hey, and Oman is unique for stones. Hey.
Yeah. And I mean, you could, ask my family. I can be incredibly boring on a walk along the beach or somewhere because I do love rocks. I love rocks.
You love rocks?
Yeah, my kids tell people, my mum loves rocks.
That's funny. so funny. That's good.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to think about other people's perception. Yeah, there is definite kind of times. I mean, I was recently back last year. I spent some time as in a chair role for a flood and climate risk group here in the UK, and previous chairs and other equivalent chairs were all of a certain age and mostly male. Well, all male actually. There was one other woman who joined around the same time as me. So when I turned up for meetings, there was definitely a look of surprise when I was introduced as the chair of this committee, of this board. And that, I think one thing that can happen, it has happened to me in the past, and I know it's happened to other people, women that I've spoken to, where there has been that element of surprise when you turn up that maybe you're younger and more female than they expected someone to be. You can start to sort of question, like, or that sort of imposter syndrome. Am I good enough to be here? Am I the right person for this job? But I think you can kind of, move past that. You're there for a reason, and it's about having that confidence and that, that assurity in yourself. But it can be challenging for sure.
Dia, maybe other people have questions as well for Rachel. Netzanet, for instance, started last week with the conversation. Maybe Netzanet has a question, and maybe Vanjuri has a questions. So
I wanted Rachel to say her full story, then we can get Q&A just to make it.
I'm happy to take questions as well as I talk. Yeah, very happy. Yeah, if anyone has questions, just stop me and say.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want me, so just a couple of minutes just to sort of wrap up, I suppose. There's a raised hand. Should we take that first?
Okay, Netzanet, go on.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Netzanet. Welcome, Rachel. So when I go back to my question, so as a female geologist, how is the perception in your community? Like, for example, in Africa, especially in Ethiopia, there are stereotypes like engineering or geologist or hard science are for male. And even though you push it and you convince them, you prove them wrong that it's not only for men, through education, you take the tests, you do everything needed as a human being, not based on gender, you prove them wrong and you graduate, still consciously or unconsciously at workplace also, or when you apply for jobs, there are discriminations. And after also you pass all those technical, the written exams for job also, after you take the position also, there are unconscious and conscious bias, like for as engineer, because I'm electrical engineer. For example, for me in my journey, like as a fresh graduate, even I passed the exams like with high score for job, and after I go, what they give me is like a secretary job, not electrical engineering job as a woman. Then by nature I am straightforward, and I go and ask like my supervisor, I'm electrical engineer, this doesn't belong to me, give me the technical works like field works or the like design or something else as electrical engineer. And they give me some funny excuses like because we don't send you to the site because our daily allowance is very small and you cannot cope up with that, and why not at the office also, and I need to push so that they can assign me technical electrical engineering job. Then even though I just work and prove them that I'm correct, I'm working, delivering, it takes them some time so that they can believe as a woman, like I'm working engineering job. So have you faced this type of discrimination or perception from either the community or your office colleagues, either women or men? By the way, even the women themselves, like they don't believe that they made it as a woman engineer. So I just want to know if you face this type of things, and if so, how did you overcome and make them believe easily? Because for me, always, like when I change company, I always face the same thing because I'm a woman. I think like it's my perception. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question and for sharing that. I'm so sorry that that's happened to you. I just feel that's so unfortunate. You know, you've and unfair. You know, you've trained hard. I'm sure you're incredibly good at what you do, and you've proven that through your qualifications and your dedication to your study. And I just feel incredibly sad and a bit angry, actually, that's happened to you. And I really feel I'm so sorry that that's been your experience. And I think, you know, when we started this, I said, you know, my experiences are also a reflection of the countries in which I live and work. And for me, fortunately, I have not had that experience. You know, I am very aware of unconscious bias, and I would say that is still a huge challenge here. You know, if I just think about my time in the UK or in New Zealand, where I've done most of my work, I spent most of my career, unconscious bias is definitely still there, and you know, towards women and plenty of other groups. You know, racially, race issues, upbringing, which school you went to, where you live, like all of that comes into it, and it's a huge problem. I probably have had unconscious bias situations towards me, but perhaps, well, definitely not as significant as you have. And I'd say yours probably isn't unconscious bias, it's conscious bias. You know, they've said you're a woman and this is what you can't do. I don't know whether I can actually offer you any advice, because I feel like those experiences that you've had are, you know, it's not something that you've done wrong. It's not your problem to fix. You know, it's the system that's failing you, in putting you in that position. So, you know, I think one of the problems I have, you know, there's a lot of training that gets put towards women and other, you know, minority groups as well, wherever you're based, in that, you know, women need to do this, women need to speak up more, and women need to be more confident, women need to raise their hand more in meetings and things like that. But I think with the example you're talking of, that's more about the system and the way that the system is working against you, rather than really something that you can always control, I would say. I don't know how you feel about that as a response to your question.
I get you, because we, as you said, we are living in different culture, in different, situation system, as you said. So maybe the challenge that we face are different, and the intensity would also be different. So I get what you mean, understand you. Yeah, and one question that I want to add is, how are you balancing with your family and work as a woman? Because you have additional responsibility, reproductive responsibility, and also productive responsibility and social responsibility. For example, in my country, women have to be very social. There are many social activities to be done, and that's expected from a woman. I don't know yours, but for sure, but you have reproductive role that also adds some activities on you. And how are you coping up with that, and with your job, and how are you balancing it? Just to know. Thank you.
Yeah, very happy to talk about that. And that's kind of fits in with me kind of explaining where I am today as well, so I can reflect on that. I just thought of something I would add as well to when you asked for advice, and I felt like, how can I give this person advice with the situations are so different? But I guess the only advice I would give, that I feel qualified to give, is to keep trusting in yourself, that you've worked hard for where you are. You have as much right to be in these positions as anybody else that has done the same qualifications and has the same experience. So, you have a right to these jobs. You have a right to be paid the equivalent money and to be given the same opportunity. So it's about, have that faith in yourself that you deserve to be there, and keep standing up for yourself, because it sounds like you are, which is fantastic, and just keep doing that. In terms of the family question, so I was saying, I was working for quite a big company when I became a mum, and we also then ended up, after my second child, my children are 2.5 years apart, so I went back to work after having my first child just part-time. And actually that was quite a struggle, because I worked for a company and also in an industry where working part-time then was not something that they were very comfortable with. It was sort of full-time or nothing. And obviously it was before the days of working from home, so you had to be in the office, and I had to push and convince that I could still be valuable to the company if I worked 3 days instead of 5 each week, which I did. And then I was fortunate that a few women had been ahead of me in that and had those conversations, so sort of set the example that, once you have children, if you want to work part-time, then you can. And I was fortunate to have 2 or 3 women who had gone before me, even though it still took some convincing. We got there. In terms of the balance, we left New Zealand and we moved back to the UK when my youngest child was only 7 or 8 months old. And at that point, I came to realise that for me personally, I couldn't balance a corporate job that required travelling and long hours with being the kind of mother that I wanted to be. And so my husband and I made the decision that I would not go and work for a big corporate, a big company again. He had quite a demanding job, and I ended up setting up my own business, and that was the driver really, that where I became self-employed, and I've now been self-employed / business owner for the last 7 years. And it was a scary step to take, to leave the corporate world where you have a big company name behind you. So you walk into a room saying, I work for this company, and everybody knows that. You have a recognized job title that everybody understands. I'm an exploration geologist for OMV. People go, okay, I know what that person does. And so I started working for myself, and it's been quite a roller coaster. Anyone who's self-employed or sets up a small business, I'm sure, will say the same thing. But for me, that was the only way that I could find the balance that I needed to be the mum that I wanted to be, and also to maintain my career. And that's where I am today. So I do some freelancing, I do some consultancy on topics that interest me, but I also co-founded a business with someone who I'd worked with before, another female geologist, also with children. We both wanted to do something different. We both wanted to try and get some of that balance back in our lives, and so we set Sustainable, which is our current business, up. So we work in sustainability, do a lot of greenhouse gas emission reduction planning, energy transition planning for companies. And we've built a team of people who are all kind of in the same mind as us. We've built a business where work-life balance, regardless of your personal situation, is really important to us. So it's not just having children that requires you to have a work-life balance. It's it's anything. Everybody has their own personal stories about why they maybe don't want to work 5, 6, 7 days a week and be on call for a big corporate. It's still a challenge, though. I think having this magical balance it doesn't always work. Some weeks I work too much and feel that I'm not spending enough time on the things that I care about, and other weeks it's the other way around. You know, maybe the kids are sick or they have events and I want to go to them and I miss things at work. So I certainly haven't got it completely right, but I think, yeah, it's a daily, weekly practice, trying to get that balance.
If I may add, like, small question, Rachel, regarding what you just said, because it's inspiring in one way or another. So, from your perspective, which one you feel was more challenging, like to be working in corporate or as a startup owner or founder? Because, for example, for myself, I have little experience in co-founding things, little compared to you, of course, and also I'm working in kind of startup company now, and in a startup atmosphere, it's, I think, more challenging than the corporate. Like in corporate, you have like one stuff to do and that's it. But in startups, it's more challenging. How do you feel about that, and which one was more challenging for you?
Yeah, I mean, all options are challenging, aren't they, in different ways. I think it comes down to what your goals are. What do you want? And then that's where your challenges come from. So for me, I wanted flexibility in my hours. So I didn't want to have to commute to an office and sit in an office from 9 till 5. I didn't want to do that anymore. It didn't fit with my goals and my priorities. So, you know, now if I went back into that corporate, yes, I would. And sometimes I think about, oh, that would be easier if I had a regular like 9 to 5 job, because I wouldn't have to think about running a business or bringing in new clients or, you know, paying people. But what I would find incredibly difficult there would be the idea that I had to be physically in a space for so many hours of the week and away from the home, and, you know, be required to work sort of to somebody else's time frame. Running your own business and being freelance and all of that, you know, you sort of say, I'm my own boss. You're not really your own boss, because your clients are your bosses, because you need to deliver to your clients. But what you can do is be a lot more selective about when you do that work. So for me, that's really important. You know, I can work maybe early in the morning. I can take some time off during the day to do things, and then maybe I can catch up on some work in the evening. I quite like to do some work over the weekend. It doesn't bother me sitting down on a Sunday afternoon, or, well, actually, if I'm in Saudi, that's a work day, but a Saturday afternoon, if I'm out there and doing 2 or 3 hours of work while maybe the children are doing an activity, or with my husband or whatever. So I like to be able to choose when I work. But obviously, running your own business sometimes can be incredibly stressful as well. So both are challenging, right? But it comes down to what is it that you want? How do you want to work? And then pick something that works for that, if possible.
Like both are challenging, to pick which challenge you would like to choose or take.
Yeah. I think now, like, if you said to me, would you rather be doing what you're doing now, like running a business, or going and working for a big corporate, I would pick running my own business. But it depends on your life and your stage. You know, when my kids are grown up and they don't need me around as much, I might be like, you know, I actually really miss going into an office, and I'd like to go back in and work for a big company. At that point, that might be what I want to do.
Isn't it a very important part you just mentioned, about that you need to understand the purpose you want to, you know, what is the purpose you want to do? Is it corporate, private? But it's also related to a female geologist. How do you deal with your environment as a female in a male environment? You know, it is about the goal, the purpose. It's about what you want, isn't it? Is it about the choice, or is it just about flexibility and go with the flow?
I think for me, it comes down to that flexibility. You know, I'm still, you know, if you think about it, being a a female in the workplace in a very male dominated industry. That hasn't changed for me. You know, whether I'm sitting in a corporate office or I'm working with our clients and going into client offices for meetings, I'm still likely to be in the minority. So the only thing that's really changed in regards to being a female is I just have flexibility to work when I slight flexibility to work when I want to. Obviously, I have to respect my clients and meet their deadlines and go to meetings and things like that. So that doesn't change. I'd say one thing that myself and my co-founder Rosalie, with our business, one thing that we talk about is we have choice. We've got ourselves into a position where we do have choice about who we work with. So whilst we're not successful enough yet that we can just turn down projects left, right, and centre, we can't do that. We need to work. We need to bring the projects in. And we have been in this situation, found ourselves working with people who we feel are not respectful of us or our team. We can choose to say, no, we're not going to work with those people. And we have done that. And we have worked with companies and then made a decision that actually we're not going to work with that company again because of their behaviours. So that is different. That's definitely different. You know, if you're in a job and you feel that the behaviours are towards you are, you know, you're seeing discrimination because of who you are, sometimes that can be very challenging if you're already in a company and that's an embedded culture within that company. Whereas we can choose to say, no, thank you. We don't want to work with those people.
Interesting to know. Thank you so much, Rachel. Dia, is there anybody else who wants to ask questions? In conversation with Rachel?
Yes, Mary, Chris, Frederick.
Mary, Chris, Wanjiru.
Yeah, it's
Is it Mary?
Yes.
It's not Mary, it's Wanjiru. Wanjiru, you want to have questions?
I'm still called Mary. I just use my second and surname a lot. I actually do have a question. I've been in a situation where me being an only woman in a technical, okay, not technically the only woman because my boss is also female, but also being an only woman with a technical background in a team has been used to the advantage of the company. Like say there's a male client coming in, I'll be in the room simply because I'm a woman, because they feel it's easier to convince a male client when you're a woman than when it's a male to male. Have you been in such a situation, and how did you handle it? If you haven't been, what do you think about that?
Oh, wow. I have not been in that situation knowingly. You never know. But no, I have not been in that position myself, fortunately. I think it depends on the reasoning. If they put you in that position just because you're a woman, then that's pretty poor form. You know, that's something that I would be very disapproving of and quite disappointed in. If they think that you're in that position because you are going to be able to handle a conversation with that particular person based on your personality, your skills, then that's obviously very different. But if you are just there because you are female, then yeah, that's not great. I'd say that's pretty bad. One thing that does make me think of, though, is this idea of like quotas and putting a female into a position to sort of tick a box that there's a woman in a position. Or, you know, here in the UK, especially in the area that I live in, it's a very, you know, dominated white area. And so when we're talking about diversity on boards, maybe if you were not white and you were put in a position to tick a box, in the same way that if it was all men and you were a woman put into a position to tick a box that there's a woman, that's a whole other conversation as well. So that sort of links into that. You know, is it okay to put somebody in a position so that you can say, yes, we've got a woman on the board, or we've got a non-white person on the board. That's another quite contentious discussion to have, I think, with quite strong opinions. But yeah, how did you handle that? If you're happy to share, maybe what did you do in that position? Because I don't know what I would do in that position. I probably refused to do it, I think, if I was able to, if I felt that I was able to sort of stand up to that person. But I know you can't, it's not always possible.
Okay, I didn't know at the time that I was being used for that purpose. It just came on later on when we were just talking with my boss, and he was like, I wanted you to do that delivery because the client was male, and it would have been easier for you to convince them so that the deal will go through and they wouldn't fail the project and all that. I was a little bit mad about it, and we did have a conversation on it because I know I'm skilled enough, I know I'm good enough, so don't just put me in a room simply because I'm a girl. Put me in a room because I'm qualified for that.
Yeah, 100% agree with your reasoning there. And that's like the discussion about the sort of quotas, you know, picking somebody because of their diversity. Nobody wants to be that person. If you're picked for a job or a position, you want to be there because you should be there and you're good enough, not because you're a woman or any other sort of group that's seen as a minority group. So yeah, fully agree with your thoughts there. And I would have been pretty grumpy as well if that was me in that position and I found out afterwards. So yeah.
If you allow me to contribute here a little bit, maybe it's not just because it's a man, he would like to talk with a woman or something like this. For instance, we had some mentoring program in the company I'm working, and our mentor was a female, and all our business team is males. She was like pushing us, guys, you have male mentality, it's not working, you need to have female with you because the mentality is different. She sees the things from different sides, and she will help you to be more creative, to see the growth from different sides. You have, let's say, some structured mentality, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, but female mentality is a little bit different. So maybe it is not because from, let's say, gender side it's male and female, but maybe because it's some kind of link, or it's more easy to communicate between male, or female knows how to communicate better with men. Maybe it's something like this. I don't know. I'm just sharing my thoughts with you.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what I was trying to say when at the beginning of my answer there was, you know, it's understanding really what the reason is for them selecting you, and if it is a personality, you know, a personality match, or they feel that you have the skills. It doesn't have to just be the technical skills. It's the, you know, so-called soft skills of being able to communicate, and you know, there could be a number of reasons. But yeah, and I think for me, that comment, you know, it brings on to the topic of diversity and why it is important to have diversity in a team and within a room, because, you know, if it's all the same type of person, then you're going to have the same conversations. So bringing in, and for me, diversity isn't just about the statistics of male, female, race. It's much more about like diversity of thought as well. You know, if you're trying to solve, for me, if I'm trying to solve a problem within our team, we want to have as many points of view and constructive debate around the topic as we can. And I think, you know, within the energy industry, we have huge challenges that we're trying to deal with today and into the future, around, you know, tomorrow's energy and environmental and social challenges with that. And for me, it makes sense to have as many different voices and opinion in the room to generate those ideas. So, you know, if you've got a team that's all male, you might think, well, we need to mix that up and have some females. But then it's also, I think it's deeper than that. It's also, where were you all educated? Which countries have you all had experience of? Which industries have you all had experience of? So I think it's true diversity of thought and diversity of discussion is much deeper than that. You know, what are your experiences? What can you bring that's different to the person next to you, that can generate those discussions and those ideas? So I think the worst thing you can do is have all the same, because then you just end up with an echo chamber. You know, if somebody says, what about this idea? And someone says, oh, that's great. And then you don't move past that.
That's actually an initiative. Okay, I just will add small comments and you can go next sentence. I remembered like one example of like if someone has a pain and he goes to different doctors or different specialists, every doctor can say different thing completely based on his experience or how he sees this. I believe it's something like this. So if we have team diverse, different countries, different mentalities, different gender.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Nitsanet, please go on.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I mean, like personal question related to relationship. Because like if you are in the hard science, sorry, the main dear Dr. Rob and others, don't mind me, okay?
I can expect what you will ask, but okay.
For example, your husband, like, because you are doing hard science, I guess. I mean, I have no idea about geology, but I think it's hard science. Because I think you are digging or doing like technical things to know like this type of things, technical hard skills. And when it comes to home, how do your husband perceive like it's, for example, in my culture, as engineer or something hard sciences, male think that you are masculine and they don't want to.
Well, like the physical, you're talking about the physical sense. Like, are you strong enough? Yeah,
they think like, because that is hard science for men most of the time, even though they keep silent, internally they think that's hard science, so they think you are not submissive. And men by nature, especially in Africa, they want women submissive and soft, and like they just jump to conclusion that if she is engineer or something, she's aggressive or something. They don't want to ask them out. So how did you cope up with that?
Wow, that's a big question. I probably have to ask my husband, but he's not here. Yeah, I've not experienced that. And I would say, like, I'd rather be the tough, scary woman that men are scared of, to ask out, and then you can be, be yourself. And yeah, you got it. If it's like with anything, isn't it? It's finding your people, finding your person who respects you for who you are. And if people don't like you for your job or the the path that you've chosen, as a study, as an area of study, then they're not your people. That's not the person or the people for you. Would be my take on it. To be true to yourself and do what you want to do. And if people don't understand that, or they don't like it, then that's their problem, right? That's not your problem to fix. That's their problem.
Totally right, Rachel. That's their problem.
Yeah.
And it's not only for male, female. It's about what do they expect you to be. So there are always people who expect you to be. They always expect me to be younger, and so I'm pointing at Dia. Hey, I'm not. Or they expect me to be more physical strong. I'm not. Or, like in Sanet's example, is like they expect more soft female, and they can expect, but it's not. It's about expectations you cannot fulfill, which means you need to stick it to yourself, and it's their problem, it's their perception, and they should solve it their own problem. Absolutely. So I am who I am, and you are who you are, and be proud of what you are.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's in every, you get that in, I can't speak for your culture in your country because I'm not I wasn't brought up there, and I don't know it, but there's always going to be people who think things about you or don't agree with what you do,
And in gender, there's always that issue of there's even more expectation. You know,
Yeah.
what do they expect from a blonde girl?
yeah,
Oh, they call you girl. Oh, shoot,
Yeah.
I should have said women. Oh,
Yeah.
things like that. You know, and you're blonde. You
And-
cannot be an engineer, Rachel.
and it happens
Wow.
the other way. You know, I have a number of female friends and people I've worked with who they've had children, and then because of their personal situation, they have stayed at work and worked the long hours in the corporate setting, and the husband has taken the time off to be the primary caregiver for the children. And I know that for those families, there's been plenty of comments made. Oh, well, why is he? Surely he should be the one doing the big job and earning all the money. Why is he at home with the children? What's wrong? I don't understand. So it happens the other way as well. It's, you know, and again, everybody's situation is personal. And yeah, for me, I as long as someone's there for the kids in whatever, whether it's a mum, a dad, a granny, a daycare, a private nanny, like, you know, who cares? Like, it's your own personal choice, right? So
Exactly. You need to deal with the expectations of others. They expect you to be whatever, but you cannot overcome these expectations because this is an expectation. And sorry, this is me. This is you. This is how we are. This is how we deal with it. And people should, maybe they should cope with the situation, how it is.
Yeah.
I remember I watched a short reel for Warren Buffett when he was talking about successful marriage. He said the only one secret I can share about successful marriage is lowering the expectation. Female lower the expectation, the marriage will be successful. So if you did something more, okay, it will be like nice.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, listen, go on.
Yeah, I just said, like, I mean, we are, I understand that we are from different culture. So, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of expectation from my people, my community as Ethiopian, like traditional, religious, many things like, many things expected from woman. If I say so, like, for example, there is a lot of pressure from the community, from religious, like, I mean, these leaders or community, many things, and they are straightforward and they pressure you. Yeah, but yeah, as you said, you cannot fulfill everybody's expectation, and you need to convince, like, myself, whether they accept me or not. It is me. So yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to add, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, cultural norms and expectations are very difficult. I mean, having recently moved out to Saudi Arabia, I have had a tiny glimpse into the dramatic change for women in that country. And like I said, I've been there like 6 months, so I'm no expert on this, but from talking to people who've been there longer and from meeting some of these incredible women who are experiencing these changes where they couldn't drive, they couldn't go out without a chaperone, they couldn't travel on their own, they were not encouraged to work, to do sports, and Saudi Arabia has really opened up and changed, but there's still that heavy cultural expectation of women in that setting as well, and men. You know, it's expectation of both. That the men will fulfill one part and the women will do the other. And I know from talking to some of the women in Saudi, that's incredibly difficult, because whilst the laws have changed, the cultural expectation, it takes a while to catch up. It doesn't change overnight. It takes generations to see those changes. So yeah. I feel, I'm very fortunate that I was educated and spent most of my career in countries where there isn't as much cultural pressure. There's still pressure as a woman to do certain things, but not to the extent that other countries have. And I can imagine that would be very, very difficult. So yeah.
Thanks.
Huge respect and kudos to those women who have much greater challenges than I have in what I've done.
Thanks, Rachel. I promise you we will not take more than 1 hour or so, but we have one question from one mail, so we'll end with it. And if you are open, we can organize, invite you another session. Will be
absolutely. Yeah, please. What's your question, Frederick?
Okay, thank you so much. It's been quite an enriching session. I've learned a lot about women. I just wanted to ask, it's difficult to be the engineer, but how does it feel even to be in a senior position in this field which is dominated by women? So, you are in the senior position whereby the decision final. Sometimes, you have to revoke a men's decision, for the best of the organization. How does it feel to be in such a position?
So the signal was a bit broken there, but I think he's asking how does it feel to be in the position I'm in now, running the team? Is that what you read from that? Heard from that?
I heard something about taking decisions, Frederick. If you can.
Yeah, in a senior position.
Could you write it, please, Frederick, and we'll read it because the internet is not so stable, I think.
Thank you, Frederick. I think if it's about sort of being in that senior position and making decisions, I think in general, it's sort of careful what you wish for, because it was something that I really wanted to be in control of, building a culture and building a business. And on the whole, it's great, but it's also quite stressful and challenging as well to be the one that's, I'm fortunate I have an incredible business partner and co-founder at the business, so we share a lot of that responsibility. But sometimes it can be tricky, and you sort of wonder, have I got things right, and am I making the right decision? Oh, there's the question: how do you manage to be in a senior position, more especially in a male-dominated field? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's, for me, it's being in any senior position, regardless of whether it's male dominated or not. What's interesting is actually the area that I'm now working more in, which is around sustainability, environmental, social, advisory. There's actually an awful lot of women now in that field, which we talk about, why is that? But I think for me, being in a position where we're making decisions would be just the same, to be honest. Like I said, careful what you wish for. You want to be in that position, and then you get there and you realize it's actually quite difficult. And you just have to trust your instincts and go with what you can, and take advice from people that you trust as well. That's what I try to do. And hopefully that answers that.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. And if you can leave just final comments, if you would like for sure to add more thing, Rachel, please. If not, I think we need to end it, because I promised you 1 hour, not to take much of your time.
Rob's hungry.
And we're hungry.
Yes.
Dia, we're hungry.
We're hungry. Yeah, we're hungry. No, just to say thank you, and I hope that the conversation has been useful. And if anybody wants to follow up with me with any questions on anything we've talked about, do feel free to flick me an email or find me through LinkedIn. Either way. And thank you for inviting me, and good luck, everybody. And it's been a really nice conversation. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Pleasure having you and hearing your inspiring story. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Banjiru.
Wish
Thank you,
all a
Netsanet.
good
Bye
evening.
bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye, Frederick.
Bye.
Bye, Chris.
Bye. Good night.
Next week.
Bye, Rachel. Bye, Dia.
Bye, Rob. See you next time.
Bye.